Wait, hold on. I just started a recording. I'm just going to explain this and post it on the internet. What the fuck? Can't even speak English. I'm just going to
Mhm.
explain this and post it on the internet as it is and see what happens.
Okay.
So, like, you know how I said human thoughts are one dimensional and emotions are two dimensional,
Mhm.
and that your actions are three dimensional, and that you need to align the one dimension to the two dimensions, make it three dimensional by looking at all your emotional planes stacked next to each other, and that makes it three dimensional. And you just need to not think in language. Like, just
Mhm.
don't think in language, and then you win. And instead of thinking in language, use your thoughts to align your emotional states until you get three-dimensional shapes, and then pick the one you want to do. And boom, that's manifestation.
Mm.
Like that's it. You know how I said that? Let me show
Mhm.
you what the emotional plane is. I can literally show you the dimension of the emotional plane. So all planes have to have axes of movement, right? Axis. And that just means what directions can they move? That's a fucked up arrow. Bang. Right, there's an axis, left to right, and this would be one dimensional because you can move left to right within it. Okay? So a two-dimensional plane, like this bad boy, would require the x-axis and the y-axis, right? The x-axis you control, and the y-axis you, that's not a you don't control, right? I'll put a C for control. The x-axis, which is this direction, is just how unserious you take a moment versus how serious you take a moment. You can always choose to take a moment seriously or unseriously. Like, for example, anger is what happens when you take a moment too seriously. If you're ever angry, lighten the fuck up. Here's a spoiler alert. If no one is dying, it's not that deep. Capitalism is not an excuse to be abusive. Like, all your problems are basically solved right off the bat, right? And
Mm.
we can tell this to be true because if you actually ask someone angry, anger is an aggregate. It's like a blanket. It covers the real emotion. If you're feeling shameful, you get angry. If you feel upset, you get angry. If you feel grief, you feel angry. If you feel despair, you feel angry, right? These are just that you not taking the situation seriously, or sorry, you're taking the situation too seriously. You're looping back, meeting yourself, and getting angry because you're going too deep. Like, it literally is like that. So you control how serious and unserious you take a situation, and then the y-axis is what we don't control, and this is the positive and negative perception, right? With the top being positive and the bottom being negative, and this is just timelines expanded versus timelines collapsed. That's literally it. Right? So what you perceive as positive is just your timelines expanding, which just means the amount of things you can do expanded. So, for example, if we take a little stick figure dude like this, he's got a bit of a smashed up head, and we take his future, there's an infinite amount of possibilities stick figure dude can do in the future. This here is future, two dimensions, right? Because there's a there, sorry, I'm stuttering. Even though there's an infinite amount, even though there's a smaller amount of options that you can do in your immediate present, like in the next 10 seconds, there's less options that you can do than, let's say, in 5 years' time. There's a bigger gap. There's more you can achieve. That doesn't mean they're both not equally infinite. Like, the gap between 1 and 3 is infinite, but the gap between 1 and 9 is also infinite. So these two sizes are both infinite, even though this one's bigger. Following?
Right. Yeah.
So the reason why this is important is because we need to understand that if you've got this many options in your future, like this, and then all of a sudden it expands like this, it's still infinite, right? But the infinity got bigger. So instead of a 1 to 9, it's now a 1 to 11. It's
Mhm.
bigger, but it's still just infinite. And we perceive that as a positive. And an example of that is if I walked into your house and gave you $1 million. You'd perceive that as some big positive. You'd be happy that I gave you $1 million, right?
Mhm.
But that's only because the amount of things you can now buy expanded. You might be able to buy a house, buy a car, buy a watch, buy some shoes that you couldn't buy prior. So this is the amount of things that you could do in your timeline has expanded, so we perceive that to be a positive. Even if it's not, because a lot of the time that you gain large lump sums of money, it's actually negative what it does to your life, but it still feels positive because it's still just about whether your timeline's expanded or collapsed. That's your emotional state.
Right.
And timeline collapse is the exact opposite, and that's what we perceive as negative. Like if I ran into your house with a gun pointed at your head and said, get on the floor, you got two options now. Like you had an infinite amount of options of things you could do. Like you could make a sandwich, go for a walk, throw a rock at your neighbor's house for being religious. There's so many things you could do, but instead now someone's pointed a gun at you, a weapon, you have to comply or die. So the amount of options you had that day drastically decreased. You perceive it as a negative, but in reality, it's just the amount of timelines that were accessible by you has collapsed. This is why death is seen as one of the most negative things on planet Earth, and why it feels so painful is because any timeline where the deceased person that you would have spent time with the deceased has now collapsed. You're never going to speak to the dead again. You're never going to hang out with the dead again. You're never going to sing a song with the dead again. You're never going to see the dead again. So it seems to
Right.
be a negative, but it's just the timeline's collapsing. So
Mm-hmm.
humans, right, would perceive, because this is unserious and this is serious, right? They'd perceive this corner as the absolute upper echelon because you're as unserious as possible and your timelines are expanding, right? So people would
Mm.
perceive this to be really good because this is them laughing and making money, for example.
Right.
And then they would perceive this corner as the worst feelings, like this is grief and despair, as this is when you're super serious, you're trying really hard, and your timelines are still collapsing. No matter what you do, it fails.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we create this diagonal path where humans are trying to run down here and run it down straight. We're just ignoring all this shit. It's really
Yeah.
dumb. Like we're ignoring when it's serious and your timelines expand. We're ignoring when it's unserious and your timelines collapse. Which, by the way, this is probably, if you were to look statistically speaking, the best place to be.
What's an example of the other two corners?
The other two corners, well, this one that I'm talking about right now, which is one of my personal favorite emotional bands to be in, is
Mm-hmm.
when timelines are collapsing, where you're losing opportunity, but you're unserious, so you're laughing at it. That's real power. That's the power to let power go. And if you can
Mm.
master that comfortably, you become basically a god. That's what Kanye was trying to say in the word power, in the song Power, by the way. Do you have the power to let power go? Which means, do you have the ability to, as your timelines collapse, laugh? Because if you do, you're unkillable, like you're untouchable. That is the end of suffering. And then the opposite is timelines expanding while it's serious. This is like a marriage.
Mm.
And the problem with being serious while your timelines expand is if you have to be serious for you to get more opportunities, then 9 times out of 10, those opportunities aren't meant for you because they didn't come naturally to you because you had to work to get them.
Mm.
So this corner can be
So,
probably one of the worst
right.
ones to actually be in as well.
So yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
Because it leads this, like, you have to be constantly serious in your life to keep expanding in your life, and it's really bad for conditioning. Because you have to also understand that your nervous system gets conditioned. So if you spend long periods of time in certain places, that you get conditioned to stay there. And that while it seems really nice to be serious in your timelines expanding, this is the hell that created Kurt Cobain blowing his brain out. Well, actually, maybe that might not be true because there's a lot of evidence that he was a trafficked child, just by the way. Like he was doing a documentary called like The Silent Children with a bunch of the other people that committed suicide. But anyway, my point is all these rich people that get depressed and kill themselves, this is why. It's because they've been conditioned that they need to keep being serious for their timelines to expand, and anytime they're unserious, they expect collapse, so it happens.
Mm.
Like they get stuck looking at it like it's two-dimensional. Like instead of they can move around freely like these points, like this, you know what I mean? They're stuck
Yeah.
as these massive lines. You know what I mean? So they move through all of it like this, all of it at once, because they're just misunderstanding it.
Mm. Makes sense.
But yeah, that's basically the entire emotional human spectrum. And everything like anger, grief, despair, it's just how you interpret this. It's just up for interpretation. There's a massive difference between the raw emotional signal and then how you interpret it. And that's also alignment. Alignment is aligning. We want all of our internal processes to always be agreeing with each other, stop conflicting. So alignment would be making sure that you express your emotions honestly to this. Like you're not feeling grief because someone got upset. Think deeper. Think, where are you on this two-dimensional graph? Where am I? If we don't control, oh, actually, I got a better way to word this. Hold on, let me cook.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go back to our graph, right? We got this. We got timelines. Oh, oopsie. We got, on this axis, timelines expanded. In this axis, timeline's collapsed. And then on the x-axis, we've got unserious to serious, right? With these corners.
Mhm.
Since you don't control the timeline's expanding and timeline's collapsing, you have always got instructions for you to figure out who you really are as well. Like reality always gives you a map to find who you are. Everyone always is like, who am I? I don't know who I am. This is how you find who you are. Right? Because reality does one of two things. Let's say an event happens and that you find out that someone you know has got an opportunity, right? What's going on there is we know for a fact an opportunity occurs regardless of how serious or unserious anyone takes the situation. Because right now, this green opportunity has occurred. Now,
Mhm.
all we have to do is control the opposing line. We're going to make it blue. We'll make it all lined up. What the fuck? There we go. Close enough, right? And we take this opposing line and we need to figure out where on the unserious to serious like spectrum we are, right? And let's say we
Right.
pick here. That means that the emotion that we're going to be feeling, right, is this one, whatever this would be. And the thing about
Right.
reality is reality always has your actual emotional signal is always present the second that it occurs. So the second any event occurs, this will be how you really feel. Like the real you will care here. And your goal will be to make sure that the amount of serious to unserious you take the situation aligns so that you're on the right path. And that's just like being honest about your emotional
Mm.
state, how you express it. But then people, how they express it, they change their degree of seriousness, especially while showing off. Like people will pretend to be nonchalant and not take it as serious when they should. Or people will be showing off and trying to be like all important, so they'll take it too seriously. And they're not being honest in themselves. And all of a sudden, the actions that they express, which is this red line, which is the intersection between what actually happened that you had no control of and what, your perception of it that you do have control of, all of a sudden that this red circle is not actually where this pink circle is and you're not in alignment. And the gap in alignment is this wide. Like, hold on, what color do I want to use? Purple. The gap is this wide between them. You see what I'm saying? And you'll
Yeah.
always be able to tell whether or not you acted in the right way or the wrong way based on how you internally feel. Because aligning these will always feel surreal. Like you will know. This is when you get the goosebumps. You ever just been in a situation where it was negative, but you did something that was brave and you got goosebumps afterwards? That shit. That's how you know. Somatic cues.
Mm.
These really intense bursts of good feelings in negative situations lets us know that we are in the right emotional state for the situation. Even if the emotional state we've put as
Mm.
negative, we can be happy in ourselves that we were crying. You can be proud of the fact that you cried while in pain in front of people while also being in pain and crying. And that is called meta-awareness. And if you want meta-awareness, you need to be in alignment. Everyone has meta-awareness, but they don't know that they're not activating it until the pink lines up with the red. If the pink doesn't line up with the red, you don't have meta-awareness because you're too busy internally arguing. And if you're the type of person that goes away and argues, did I do the right thing? I did this, should I have done this? This is your body trying to tell you that you weren't in alignment.
Mm.
You never second guess a
Okay.
correct decision.
Right. Makes sense.
You see what I'm saying?
But I feel like it's hard to like find that alignment sometimes, like especially like controlling your demons and shit and like knowing like who's actually talking.
It can be very hard. It's just when you need to start trusting somatic cues, you know what I mean? And the best question to ask yourself in this situation, if you're really unsure, is just who does this serve? Like, is this actually beneficial for me, or is my mind trying to convince me to do something for someone else? Because if you're trying to be convinced to do something for someone else, especially if they never explicitly, excuse me, asked for you to do it, then you're probably just getting manipulated for ulterior reasons by your own mind to self-destruct and sabotage. Because sabotaging and self-destruction is safer than having the spotlight turned on you.
Can't relate. I'm selfish as fuck.
Yo, dap me up. That's why you're where you are and everyone else is where they are. The thing is,
Mm.
I'm just going to throw this at the end. I'm going to post this whole fucking thing just raw, right? The thing is,
Okay.
the human is the resonance between the 3D vessel of life and consciousness as a function. And it's just infinite, it goes forever, right? And you just resonate to what your body allows you to resonate with.
Right?
And this is all of us, like, because we're in a collective consciousness, kind of like panpsychism, but not quite. That's just what's real. Um, this is always going to be for the universe. Like, this is always going to be about coherence, alignment, and love. Like, this is love, right? But your body is always going to be selfish. And that's why there's the fucking yin and yang shit. This is an awful drawing of yin and yang. You know what I'm saying? But that's why there's the yin and yang
Yeah.
shit, because you need to be opposites and find balance. Everything has an opposite. So for all the love that you have inside of your soul is selfish that you have inside of your body, because your body needs to survive.
Mm,
Because there ain't no level of love that's going to make you survive a gunshot wound to the head.
exactly.
So you need to
So
make sure that you
find
never
about.
get put into a position where a gun's pointed at you. You need to have a degree of selfishness.
Mm.